Good evening, Des Moines. Welcome to the Doc and Lefty program here on webcast onelive.com. This is Lefty bringing you the perspectives you love from the sides you hate every Tuesday at 6:30 to 7:30. We've got a big show this evening from the studios here in downtown Des Moines. And with me, as always, he thinks leading from behind is for hippies and wastrels. Dr. Patrick Bertroche. Doc, what's up?
Hey, what's going on, Blake? How was your week?
The week so far, all 2 days of it, or last week, or what do you mean?
Both of them.
Both of them. Well,
see, our week, we're kind of like we should call it the fiscal week. You know how the fiscal year is not like from January. We're done the fiscal week from Tuesday to Tuesday. So how was your last week?
We are. I got to say, it was all right. I mean, when you are trying to keep your finger on the pulse of current events while at the same time watching really bad TV shows from the 90s okay, let me start over. So I'm in my early 30s at this point, and the last year or so I've been gravitating toward the music and the culture from when I was a teenager, like 13, 14 years old, listening to all the old acoustic rock songs from the early 90s that are really awful, and playing them at gigs and stuff. Yeah. And so I'm watching a lot of garbage TV on Netflix that I don't know, it makes it so easy.
Catching up from the decade.
I guess, but so that makes keeping your finger on the pulse pretty difficult. Also, when you get a surprise gig over in West Des Moines where you make more money in 1 hour than for only an hour's worth of work. So it's not like I made a whole crap load of money, but I made more money per hour doing this gig than I ever have as an attorney.
Well, that's the way it goes. Cause you have a lot of musical talent.
Yeah. Well,
so I'm just going to leave it at that.
I see how it is.
Blake's a great lawyer. He's very thorough. I'm just giving him a lot of crap. How do you like living in Southern Florida currently?
Oh my gosh. Somebody asked me that question. I made a comment on my two. I got two dogs. Yes. The 62-pound coonhound and the 22-pound terrier mix. And the terrier doesn't care. She's a puppy. She'll run around. She'll do whatever she needs to do. You let the coonhound out in this heat. It doesn't matter if she's been crated all day and needs to do her business worse than anything else. Just goes outside and lays down. Like nope. Either bring me back into the AC or I'm not having it.
Yeah. Well, I got Sybil,
yep.
The little white one. Well, Sybil loves being outside. It doesn't matter if it's 100 degrees out or 50 below zero. And she will go over, stand in her spot that she digs at, because we have a yard, and there's a big sandy spot that's her digging spot. She goes over there, lays down in her digging spot, lay there 10, 15 minutes, get up, dig like a fiend, lay back down. And then, you leave her out there 3-4 hours, then she'll come up to the door and say, I'm hot enough, let me in.
Yep.
So, but the other two dogs, they're out, they get their business done and right back in.
Yeah, it's pretty tough.
It's miserable.
I was in court all day from 10:30 until about 5 today on a hearing, and wearing this suit, standing in the blacktop, newly refinished blacktop parking lot across from the courthouse, thought was, probably going to wring myself out when I get back inside because this is pretty ridiculous.
Well, you always kind of look a little bit greasy and slimy to me, but
I know,
that's just
I know
one of those things. You're a lawyer. That's what lawyers look like.
I can't help it. It's a good thing that I was naturally greasy and slimy, or else I don't know what kind of profession I've been able to get.
Well, you were a bartender. That's good for that.
That's true. That's true. I think the only thing that would have been worse than this, I'm going to alienate all of our fitness fans. I was never a personal trainer. If you ever see a guy at a bar and you ask him what he does, he says, I'm a personal trainer. You can you're broke.
You remember the show Married with Children?
Yes,
remember
I do.
That? They had that episode where that one guy, the fittest man in Chicago, came on, and Peggy killed him.
No, I don't remember that.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. I'm the healthiest guy in Chicago, and by the end of the episode, he was dead. Then at the end, Al's line, which is one I always remember, he said, he goes, well, he says, this is what happened. This guy started eating the stuff the rest of us eats, and his body simply couldn't handle it, and he dropped over dead. That was pretty good. So, well, let's talk a little bit about the show we got coming up.
Yeah.
We got a couple of things on a state level. The gubernatorial candidate...
we have a gubernatorial race, and it's got 3 candidates.
There you go. Whoo, man, yep. I'm glad he bailed me out on that one. But it looks like there is some difficulty with Governor Branstad. Now, Caffeinated Thoughts did a poll, and Branstad was ahead at 38%, but Lee Hieb came in at 36%, which is pretty good. And of course, Jack Hatch, since it's a conservative blog site, he came in at like something like 3%. Then there's another poll released by people that do polling professionally. It's supposed to be neutral and all that. Mm-hmm. And Jack Hatch is over 30%, and Branstad is at 38%. So there's not much difference between the two polls, except Jack Hatch is doing a lot better. The other thing is, this poll didn't ask anything about Dr. Lee Hieb. And I think because of that and a couple other reasons, she hasn't been invited to the IPT gubernatorial debate. And I personally think if you have somebody who's actually out there and legitimate and is able to raise money and is, running, has a platform, really wants to have her say, then you should do it. One of the things I think, though, that IPT is worried about is the rent is too damn high kind of thing. So they have these set of rules so that if you're a third party, it's going to be really difficult to get in. Anyway, right after the break, we're going to start with Dr. Hieb. She's calling in, and we're going to have a discussion with her about this situation. The next, we're going to go on to the tragedy about MH17, the Malaysian flight that got shot down in Ukraine. We're going to analyze that a little bit. And Dr. Hieb does have experience in the Russian sphere, so maybe she can give us some insight, because I've given on our blog and on Facebook to give my insight. And then at the end, we're going to finish up with how many failures can Obama's foreign policy take before people say, geez, this is not working. We'll be back right after the break. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll be back with Lee Hieb right after this. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
Petrosian Associates, how can I help you?
Bertrosh and Associates will provide you with a friendly, caring, and confidential place to find help for mental health concerns. We are ready for your call. Our doctor, Dr. J. Patrick Bertrosh, provides a full range of psychiatric services for children, adolescents, and adults in a forthright and informative manner while maintaining a casual, comfortable, and relaxed atmosphere.
Hey, what's wrong?
Logan wants Let's Rock Elmo for his birthday, but since Steve lost his job, I don't think we can afford it. What did you do for money last year when you and John were struggling to make ends meet?
My secret? I went to Me and Mommy-to-Be. We sold all of Megan and Ryan's clothes and toys there. They give back the highest percentage on their items in the area, and it was so easy.
Megan's clothes? She's 15.
Yes, they can sign newborn through trendy teens. We're not struggling now, but I'm going to keep saving and making money at Me and Mommy-to-Be.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast 1 Live.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking around for this this next segment. I think that we've got our special guest on the phone, and this is my first time being on the show at the same time that Dr. Hieb is on the show. So for all of you folks out there that thought that I was just Dr. Hieb with a clever Superman-esque disguise, you can disabuse yourself of that notion right now, because she's here on the line to talk about the governor's race. Dr. Hieb, how are you?
Hey, good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Oh, great. So you are running, and this is Lefty. I know you and I have never met in person.
Right, I know.
But you're running for governor on the now, are you on the Libertarian ticket, or are you running as just an independent?
No, I'm a Libertarian.
Okay.
And I think you had your numbers wrong, because it'll explain a bunch. Actually, on the Caffeinated Press poll, I got 36% to Branstad's 31%. Which
yes.
Probably why it then becomes such a big issue. Although I will tell you, I used to be a Republican. I'll admit that in public. And I just didn't know this went on. But I used to hear other people complain about it. And the Soviet Union, the old Soviets had a phrase, they said, it's true when it happens to you. So what I'm experiencing is that this whole thing with Iowa Public TV, although I kind of think of myself, the metaphor is David and Goliath against Branstad, what the real issue is, this is like a Cinderella story. Because, Cinderella wanted to go to the ball, but the ugly stepmother said, sure, you can go to the ball, but you have to do all this to get in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she couldn't do it, but fortunately she had a fairy godmother. Now, see, Iowa Public TV tells me, sure, you can be on the debate, but you have to have these 5 criteria.
Right.
Well, unfortunately, I've got the money, I've got the press, I've got the platform, and all the things they say make me a real candidate. There are 2 things that that make it impossible. One is that the Libertarian Party, in spite of the fact that we're the 3rd biggest party in America and we've got all this stuff, we are not a recognized party in the state of Iowa, because it all depends on whether we ran national candidates in the last election, okay, and how they did. It doesn't really capture what's happened in between. But anyway, and the third and the last thing is, it depends on if I make 5% an independent poll. Now, see, they consider their polls independent, even though they don't survey for third parties or for independents. They consider them fair. And, those demographics are always a little stilted, too. But they say the caffeinated press isn't fair because, number one, it's kind of a pre-selected Christian conservative viewership. And, well, that's what they say. That's what they say is not fair. It's a pre-selected viewership. However, somebody that can do a student's t-test, I'd like to know, if we were talking 5% to 7%, it'd be one thing. I'd say, okay, maybe that's not right. But when you're talking 36 to 31, I have a feeling that reaches statistical significance in almost any realm. But my point is, if you really think this is the right way to go, I wonder if Iowans really want their tax-supported television to make sets of rules that, although they may look objective, would never let an independent in. I mean, I might have a chance, but they would never let an independent into this debate, no matter how good he was doing. Remember, Jesse Ventura ran as an independent, won in Minnesota. Independents have won major elections, but you could never be on the Iowa Public TV debate with these rules. So they appear objective, but they're not.
So when you say that they only believe, IPT only believes their own polls, are you telling me that IPTV will not accept any other poll except for a poll that they did?
Not that they did, but what they determine is independent. They might, whoever commissions these polls, but the major pollsters that they're looking at don't poll for third parties or independent. I can tell you, I mean, if you ask anybody that's gotten one of the calls, either they didn't know there was a third candidate or another candidate, or they hung up on them before they got a chance to say. As soon as they said, I'm not voting either for the Democrat or the Republican, it was click.
Yeah,
so,
that's.
I'm just saying that's not a.
So what's your next step? Are you really trying to get on this, or have you given up the fight and are going to do something else besides that?
Well, there are 2 schools. There's 2 ways we're going to go, and we're kind of working in parallel here. The first thing we're going to do is make public awareness of where their tax dollars are going to Iowa Public TV. So we're kind of beating them up on social media, and we're just, we were polite up until now. We're just going to lay out. We're not being rude. We're just going to lay out the facts. Number 2, there's going to be a parallel debate on WHO radio. So I am going to get to answer the questions. It just won't be on their stage, perhaps. And
this is going to be on WHO radio?
Yeah.
When?
Jan Michelson is setting that up as we speak.
No kidding.
So he's offered a parallel debate. He said, we'll ask the same questions. We might even play some of their answers, And then the third thing is, I've got people all over the state are upset about this. And, one of the groups that I resonated with at first is the Anti-Common Core group. And they've come out and said, listen, we'll picket, we'll protest, tell us what to do. So I think those 3 things are going to happen no matter what. Now, if we can possibly get a poll that they will accept, see, I kind of think there's a shifting stand. I kind of think no matter what we do, they won't accept it. But if we can get a poll that they will accept done by then, maybe we can get on. But, I got to admit, my major qualification for this, I'm not a professional politician. So my experience hiring pollsters or getting an independent poll company to do this is very limited. So I'm working on that tonight. But we have Miss Offenbach from Offenbach Law jumped into this fray. She's a libertarian, and she is a former Russian, so she knows about Trump and Izvestia and these places. So she knows what it is to have. I was a student. I studied Russian in college years ago at Grinnell College, actually, and Russian history and things and politics of the Soviet Union. And we used to make fun of the Soviet Union because we said, how objective can their news media is paid for by the government. That means nothing. So what they say you can't believe. And you know what? We were right. I guess we were right. But anyway, she knows what that's about. She's jumped into it. one of the things that they're telling people, apparently, we've had people calling today, and they say that you haven't even applied to be on the debate. What? No, our lawyer wrote them formal letters. We've talked to them multiple times. We had a formal response from the Attorney General of Iowa telling us the reason we can't be on the debate is that they don't accept that poll by Caffeinated Press. And they told us it wasn't independent enough.
Goodness. Well, you know what? We're coming up on a break. I'm glad you told me your side of the story. I'm going to tell you, give me the information about when you're going to be on WHO. I think that's going to be an even bigger audience than IPTV. You know?
I think it's going to be great.
Oh, yeah. So our next segment, we're going to cover the downing of the Malaysian airplane. And I know that you have a background in Russian. And I didn't know if you wanted to stick around and give us some of your thoughts on that whole fiasco going on.
Sure. I mean, I'm not sure I have any great insights. I just had an opinion. Doc and I disagree about this opinion, but I'll be glad to be here.
All right. Yeah, we'll be back right after the break. We're going to have Dr. Lee Hieb on again for another segment. We're going to talk about the Russians shooting down or the separatists shooting down the Malaysian airliner. Don't forget to check us out on docandlefty.com as well as Facebook and Twitter. And we want to thank all of our sponsors, including Des Moines Anesthesia, Lubinus Law Firm, Petrosian Associates, Halo Capital. We'll be back right after this break. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
See them here, see them there. You got bad credit? We don't care.
Visit emetroford.com for your guaranteed credit approval. Good credit, bad credit, no credit. Everybody drives with guaranteed credit approval at emetroford.com. Visit emetroford.com today.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
So, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. We have Dr. Lee Hieb on the phone with us, and Dr. Hieb, I think this makes your third appearance on Doc and Lefty, your fourth? Is that right?
Third.
Okay.
Yep.
So, which is that you get denoted whether you want to or not with super duper friend of the show status, and because I don't ever allow a super duper friend of the show off the air without me talking to him a little bit, I'm going to ignore Doc's setup from the previous segment because I got a couple of questions I want to ask you. This is typical. I mean, if you want if you want to see raw, unfiltered, AKA completely disorganized stream of conscious radio, this is the show that you want to tune into. So Dr. Hieb, running as on the Libertarian ticket. Now, Libertarians aren't recognized as a national party in Iowa, but I'm sure they are in other places in the country. Do you have a national infrastructure behind you for your campaign here in Iowa?
Well, I guess I would say that I have the blessing of the National Party, and I've just been contacted by Gary Johnson, his group. Mm-hmm. We're just haven't gotten connected yet, but we're working on that. So, we don't get special interest money, so the Libertarian Party doesn't throw around big bucks from either the Central Party or the State Party. That's not how we function. And that probably is not a bad thing, although, Libertarians sometimes think you can win just with good ideas alone. You have to have some money. Mm-hmm. But the problem we have right now in the system that we have, in my opinion, is that we have two big political machines that take special interest money and then legislate in favor of those special interests at the expense of everybody else. And the only way we're going to break that up is to basically unelect all the incumbents and shake those guys up and get machines gone. It isn't any one individual that's the problem for the most part. It's the machine.
Well,
so
go ahead.
We don't have a machine. I'll admit that. We do not have a machine, but we have one of the nice things, I went to the National Party meeting for the first time. I've never been to a national convention.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got back to Iowa, it was all this infighting about who's in, who's out, who gave their votes to who and what electioneering stuff. But at the National Libertarian Party, it was great. We talked about principles. We talked about character and how when a nation that loses its character loses its liberty, and we talked about liberty. And we had a Russian lady who stood up the first Libertarian Party in Russia come talk to us, and she was great. And
no,
so I was energized by that. But if you're asking me, do I get big finances from them? No.
Well, to that point, then, if your party is based on principle and while you have backing in principle, maybe not financial, and that's as you explained, you have a good explanation for that. But where do you view your constituency as coming from? If we have two political machines that have been turning out folks for a century or more, I don't know when the last Whig dropped off the face of the earth. I know Andrew Johnson, I think, was our last Whig president, and that was back in the 1860s. But where do you see where do you think your constituency comes from?
Well, that's a very good question, and I think it's interesting because I'm really actually very energized about that. People are fed up, and people are fed up from all sides of the aisle here.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that's uniting the party is people against Common Core, against this educational program that's being mandated by the federal or handed down to us by the federal government that the current governor signed on to. And so anti-Common Core people come from the Democrats, the Republicans, their parents, their teachers, that group. The other group is small business owners. Small business owners are being killed in this state. We pay horrible taxes, and mostly we're being regulated to death. I mean, the regulations are killing small business. Branstad says he's given us a tax break, but he just gave us $1 billion increase in the budget. You can't have both at the same time. And although he gave tax breaks to Google and Facebook and some other big businesses coming in the state, that doesn't help me or others or you or other people, small business. And so you steal from one to give to another, and that's not good. That doesn't help. I think the Christian conservatives are upset because they're upset that we're not standing on principles. We're funding things that are that they morally object to. And,
sure.
As a libertarian, we believe in not funding a lot of stuff. So
sure, but to that point, I don't want to ruffle any feathers except the feathers I've already ruffled in this show. But a libertarian can't realistically approach the Christian conservatives for votes, can they? I mean, that there are fundamental things that you just disagree with.
Well, let me jump in.
Here's the thing.
Let me jump in right here. I've gotten 3 different texts, all along the same lines, and that is, the people that are texting in right now are worried that even if you were able to raise money and if you could get the Christians on your side and all the rest of it, that you still wouldn't be a viable candidate. So I guess the question, that's kind of the direction we're going. What is going to make you a viable candidate? How are you going to be able to convince these people that are really very fiscally conservative to be able to vote for you?
Well, how have they done voting for the professional politicians? That's what I always ask them. How are you doing so far? We have been voting the same way for 65, 70 years, and we've gotten the same result. If you think, government can't grow forever in the state of Iowa. And every time I talk to groups, I got to tell you, they give me money. They come up, they say, we're with you. The message, as a friend of mine said the other night, truth is imminently identifiable. It rings true. People are fed up with people know there's a problem. They can't always enunciate the problem, but they realize that we can't go on like this. Every time government grows, it shrinks the private sector until you have no private sector. You can't make government the best job in the house. It doesn't produce anything except taxation and regulation.
That's a great talking point, but the question is how are you going to start convincing people that you are a viable candidate and that you can win this election against, admittedly, 2 great powerhouses, Branstad and Hatch? How are you going to be able to convince people to go, I am a viable candidate?
Well, I think we have alternative media that levels the playing field considerably. I mean, again, it would be nice to be on Iowa Public TV, but Jan Michelson has a higher viewership. So, I'm on talk radio around the state. I mean, I'm not going to go through the whole spiel about how I'm actually doing this, but I have to tell you that around the state, we're getting our message out there, and all we have to do is take 6% of the Democrats in a three-way race. We need to take the majority of the independent libertarians, and we need to take 6% of the Democrats, 6% of the Republicans, and we can win this.
All right. Now, the last question I have for you is from somebody, somebody else texting in. Man, she generates a lot of excitement when she calls.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they want to know specifically what groups are you talking to that are donating to you? That's the question I have.
Well, I'm talking to Tea Party. I'm talking to anti-Common Core groups. I've talked to Eagle Forum. I've talked to 912 groups. We need to get to we've just been approached by the Ron Paul libertarians, the Young Americans for Liberty. I mean, it takes a while to get kind of what I want to say. Every time I go on Dan Michelson, for example, or I go on a radio show, I've been on Mark Hahn and things, then we get offers, to talk to people, local business groups, for example. I mean, we've talked in people's homes. We'll come talk to anybody.
All right.
I'm working on the Optimist groups.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Doc. We appreciate it. We're coming up to another break. Can you hang around a little bit and talk about the airliner going down? Because I promise I'll just shout Lefty down this next time. Okay, Katie, stick around. You got to go.
Much fun on this show. Yeah, you have too much fun. Yeah,
yes.
I'll stick around.
All right. Thanks a lot. We want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. I want to thank our sponsor,
Des Moines Anesthesia.
Holy smokes, man. This
you
is
mean
a long
the big
night.
one? Our favorite
one.
Our number one sponsor?
Yes.
The folks that have been paying for your
my
leather chaps.
Vacations. My leather chaps, really. Yes. So, anyway, we want to thank
You're riding
Des Moines
gloves.
Anesthesia. Oh, get off it. We want to thank Des Moines Anesthesia. Jeez, there you go. There's their new number, 574-6442. Give them a call. They're great at pain management. If you need to be, put under for surgery, they're really good. They're very competent with years and years of experience. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook, Twitter. What else we got? Facebook, Twitter, docandlefty.com, all kinds of stuff. We're going to be doing I have a new blog. I'm going to be writing here and tomorrow, and hopefully Lefty will get off his can and do something else again within the next month. So we'll be back right after this break.
It's like
Thanks
the Cubs
everybody for
winning the
tuning
World
in.
Series.
Bertroche and Associates will provide you with a friendly, caring, and confidential place to find help for mental health concerns. We are ready for your call. We are proud to work with military personnel and their families. Our doctor, Dr. J. Patrick Bertroche, provides a full range of psychiatric services for children, adolescents, and adults in a forthright and informative manner while maintaining a casual, comfortable, and relaxed atmosphere. Our licensed mental health therapists provide individual counseling to children, adolescents, and adults, including couples and marital counseling. Visit our website at bertrocheandassociates.com for more information or call 515-334-9484. Our offices are located at 5525 Meredith Drive in Des Moines, just east of Skate North off Merle Hay Road. Isn't it time to talk to someone? Take care of yourself and your family. Contact Bertroche and Associates.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking around for this the first half hour. We've got our special guest, super duper friend of the show, Dr. Lee Hieb. She's running on the Libertarian ticket, running for the governorship of Iowa. It's not a ship that a lot of people seem to want, but it's certainly generating a lot of buzz. Before we go to, and we are going, I just have one final question, Dr. Hieb. Politicians are not popular. It is not a gig that people will necessarily reasonable person would want to be a politician nowadays. I mean, with approval ratings in the dumps nationally and in Iowa, or they're constantly at each other's throats. Why do you want this job, Dr. Hieb?
I'm here because I don't think we have long to go before we have a cataclysmic collapse of the economy in this country.
You mean another one?
I want to see. Oh, we haven't seen it yet. I want to see us save Iowa, and the only way, The way we're going to save liberty nationally is to take back one state at a time. And, it's starting to happen. You're seeing states like Idaho nullify federal gun laws. You're seeing Colorado nullifying their drug laws for marijuana. You're seeing the states saying, wait a minute, push back, go away, feds. We're going to run our own state. And we need to do that now. We don't have another generation. And I have 2 boys that live here, and I want to see something better for them in the future. Right now, every man, woman, and child in the state of Iowa owes $3,200 and change to the government every year. And that's a lot of money.
That's a trip to Europe.
Yeah, and quite frankly, that children don't pay, and there are a lot of people that don't pay. But if you have a family of 2, if you have a couple that makes $64,000 a year, you're automatically in the top tax bracket. And we have the unenviable position of being the top corporate tax in America. And since America is the top corporate tax in the world, we might conceivably be the top corporate tax in the world. How wonderful is that in Iowa? We have to ask ourselves, if we're getting what for our value? Is this valuable? Are we getting value for our money, or are we just carrying a 250-pound government worker on our back? I think it's the latter, quite frankly. We're regulating ourselves out of death. I see it every day in my hospital. Ridiculous regulations and a waste of money. It's a jobs program for regulators. We have to attack those unelected regulatory boards that are making it harder for the guy with a family of 4 to pay his taxes to keep them in business. It just can't go on.
All right, we're going to move on to the airliner that got shot down. For a brief history of those tuning in, Malaysian Airlines, for some inexplicable reason, sent an airliner straight over the top of this combat zone.
They asked about it, though. That's the crazy thing. They asked for advice from other airlines, and other airlines said they're flying people through it without incident.
And Ukrainian Air, by the way, did give them clearance. It said you'll be above the combat zone at 33,000 feet.
Well, and the thing is this got shot down. There's a whole lot of controversy around it. It hits the ground. The separatists don't let anybody in. They grab the black boxes. They say, we don't know what to do with these. We're going to give them to Putin. The AP I can't remember what day it is, but I think it was last Tuesday, they saw a missile launcher, a BUK surface-to-air missile that the separatists were training on. The Ukrainians had lost one of those from one of their air defense stations during this whole mess. And the trick is the Ukrainians have the SA-11, which is incapable of shooting down a plane at 35,000 feet. The fuel isn't right, and the guidance system doesn't go up that high on the whole 9 yards. So this all happens. Putin's under quite a bit of pressure to get it back. There's all kinds of rumors that they shipped the missile launcher back to Russia, so now you're never going to find it. And this terrible tragedy happens. The Ukrainians said, we didn't do it. We don't have the capability. The separatists said, well, geez, we didn't do it. And the Russians said, especially Putin, it would really, how badly it'd screw us if we did it? That's the response. So, Dr. Hieb, what's your opinion? What do you think happened? Do you think it's the Russians? Do you think it's a separatist? Do you think some moron with a itchy finger set it off? What do you think?
Well, I know that, Doctor, I disagree with this, but, Putin's a smart guy. The only thing I'm going to say here, and I don't know that I clearly don't know the answer. And the reason I even said anything on my Facebook was I said, let's just calm down here and let's not see this as a casus belli to go to war with somebody over something against the Russians because, what does he have? Cui bono? Who benefits from this? Mm-hmm. I mean, honestly, I don't think he's a dumb guy. And if I were going to try and frame the Ukrainians or frame somebody for doing this horrible act, I sure wouldn't leave my own gun around with my own ammunition, which is essentially what you're telling me if they have this BUK launcher and Russian ammunition and nobody else has the capability of doing it. We've shot down an airliner that we said was by accident. And the Russians and the Soviets have a history of shooting down an airliner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the preferred method of diplomacy, I think.
It seems, I'm not sure I get the motive, but the other side of it is that sometimes crazy stuff happens that you can't explain. I have a feeling somebody did this for a reason, to stir a pot, but I just don't know who it is. And I think before we I just don't think you can automatically rush and say it was Putin. I have to say, the other thing is I'm not going to fly Malaysian Airlines. You know, the Malaysian Airlines that we just had that lost that we never found.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What's up with that?
They've had a pretty bad year for sure.
Yeah.
But I think that the question that is really on Doc's mind, though, because this is the question that seems to keep popping up from every conservative commentator and conservative lawmaker in the last week or so.
We got less than a minute.
I'll pose the question, then maybe you can answer it after the break. Doc, we have this horrible tragedy that happened in Ukraine that we think was by some kind of Russian separatist because of circumstantial evidence. You know, they were training on this kind of equipment in eastern Ukraine, or in western Russia. It was right there on the border. It was seen in eastern Ukraine, so the Ukrainians say. We've got possibly Russian actors that are pulling the trigger on this thing. The Ukrainians are denying it. Vladimir Putin's denying it. The real question at the heart of this matter, how do we blame the president? We'll be right back after this break. Check us out, Facebook, Twitter, everything else. How is President Barack Obama at fault? I know you have an answer for it. We'll be right back. Thanks a lot.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Get away from my Sumino credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit! You're our hero!
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. We have the pleasure of having Dr. Lee Hieb, Libertarian candidate for governor, on the air with us. We've been talking about her candidacy. We're talking about the Russian new Russian controversy in the Ukraine, the tragedy with Malaysian Air 17. And you know what, Dr. Hieb, we might as well just, we've got about 20 minutes. We might as well keep you for the rest of the hour. Does that sound good?
Sure, what the heck?
All right, sounds
she
good.
Doesn't have anything else to do. She's
yeah,
saying.
that's right. Yeah, it's not like you're running a campaign for governor or anything. but I gotta say, wasn't it? I mean, and this I don't. You know what? Nope. I am gonna make it.
I'm just gonna break in here. The only thing worse than listening to Lefty without earphones is listening to him with earphones. It's stereophonic, and I can't escape it. It's like a horde of gnats after you.
A horde of gnats. I don't make these ad hominem attacks against you, sir. Ever.
You do all the time.
Never I do.
Did last week.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, but that's because liberals have a short attention span. Anyway,
fair enough.
The trick for me in all this is the AP reported they saw this missile launcher. And they saw people training on it. The second thing, the Ukrainians the Buck 11 can't shoot down planes that high. 3, the separatists are routinely shooting down military transports from Ukraine. I think it's 24 to 28 planes, something like that. And the last one is the SA-17, which the Russians have, is capable of that. And in fact, of course, my friend Jim Leach is out there listening. You can correct me. But as far as I know, the Russians and the Americans are the only ones that have the capability of shooting down a plane at that height from the ground. So for me, it's pretty obvious that, maybe, don't get me wrong, it's obvious that Putin is trying to destabilize Ukraine. He's trying to do it the best, in a subtle way, because the military way got him into a lot of trouble, but he still got Crimea. He's trying to destabilize the region. I agree with Dr. Hieb. I don't think it's a smart idea for him to shoot down a plane. The problem is these are radar-based systems, and you can't tell anything on a radar. You can tell that it's an object, you can tell which direction it's going, and you can shoot a missile at it. The problem is you can't verify what it really is. You can't. Now, the Americans have a much different system and a much different command and control. Anymore, if we're going to fire, it pipes all the way back to Washington, D.C. Some desk jockey gives a word, and it goes back out to the field. The other thing is we have cameras on the tip of our missiles, so we can go, yeah, that's a passenger plane. We probably shouldn't hit it. We have that capability. We see our missiles hitting things. We have cameras everywhere. So there's a world of difference. So from my perspective, it's some guy going, hey, listen, we think that's a Ukrainian plane. We're going to shoot it down. When it hits the ground, they all go, oh, no. The other thing is every time they quote a separatist commander, it's the same guy, but it's got a different name. And AP finally identified him, and he's a, quote, former, end quote, intelligence officer with the Russian army. So the bottom line is the Russians are there. They're active. How much culpability do you think they have?
Let me ask you this. What about this story that Putin's plane was flying through the airspace shortly before or after, and that maybe they were shooting at him?
Oh, please.
Yeah, he wasn't flying around there.
Well,
he wasn't anywhere near. He wasn't anywhere close. Now, don't get me wrong. It's a 4-hour flight from Moscow to that area. It's a 4-hour flight. All right. So yeah, he could have.
He was flying back from someplace at that time. He crossed that airspace an hour one way or another from that plane. That's what the initial news. That's what he said. People said.
Yeah, but he didn't say that, and he hasn't come out to say, geez, I wonder if that, because if that was the case, as well as I do, he'd be out there going like, listen, the Ukrainians were trying to shoot me down. They hit the wrong plane. Look, aren't they idiots? Aren't they dangerous? You haven't seen any of that. All you've seen is Putin go crap and stay quiet. Have you heard a word from him? No. All you have heard is the separatists are finally going to let people in. They don't even know if these are the same black boxes because all this stuff has been cut up. And to get to Lefty's point before the break, how is this Obama's fault? Well, the truth of the matter is,
I heard that it was Obama that pulled the trigger.
And in fact, I would agree. I think that he secretly flew over there like he did to Afghanistan when he was going to issue a written apology to everybody in the world over there.
Yep.
But the bottom line is, that there's one person to blame in this entire thing, and that's the guy that authorized pulling the trigger. That's the guy to blame. The second person to blame is whatever idiot said, let's fly over a combat zone, right? I don't care if it's safe. None of the other American airlines are flying over there. If you try to get a flight to Kiev, you get to fly into a European country, and then you get a hop over to Ukraine. That's just it. And you can only fly into Ukraine now to Kiev. There's no flights into Odessa. There's no flights into Donetsk. There's no flights into Crimea. There's just none. Nobody's going to take you there. Not even Ukrainian airlines, right? So you have this situation that's just terrible. Now, to get back to how's Obama at fault for this, honestly, it's a systems failure. What I hear Lefty tell me all the time is, well, Obama didn't screw it up as bad as George Bush. And, because you have Iraq. And he's sitting there saying, well, geez, we have all these great gains in Iraq. Well, if that's what you're comparing your foreign policy to, it still doesn't make up for all the other foreign policy failures he's got.
Well, I didn't mention Iraq.
When you're a world power, you have to lead from the front. You can't just wait, see how things develop, and hope for the best.
Well, what I've heard a lot of folks talk about on the right is that this is just that, because apparently whenever something happens in a foreign country that has international repercussions, and this has international repercussions because this was an international flight, and a lot of people's, especially the Netherlands, had citizens on board that got killed. There is this conga line of Republican congresspeople, senators and representatives that get on Fox News and are peddling this line that, well, because Obama is so weak, we now get to see what happens when people fly airplanes over war zones. It's Obama's fault because of how weak he is. This is what I heard I think on Sunday, this narrative drives me crazy. It drives me crazy. And I'll tell
40 seconds.
I'll tell you what the problem with this line of thought is. So Lindsey Graham doesn't think that we're doing enough with Russia, right? Even though we've now enacted tougher sanctions, even though nobody left or right wants to go to war with this guy, they think we're literally doing everything we can. And because the John Kerry and the Obama administration won't come out, and I think he said, call Putin the thug that he is in public, then that is giving Putin, sorry, this is ridiculous, free license to just go around and do whatever he wants. I'm sorry, Lindsey Graham. I'm sure that you're a very nice, misguided dude, but if Vladimir Putin doesn't care that his richest donors and oligarchs and his own bank and his own bank accounts are being affected by international sanctions that are, in point of fact, crippling the Russian economy, calling him a thug is probably not going to twist his panties up too badly.
Well, and I agree with that 100%. We'll be back right after the break. We'll continue on with the lefty rant of Obama is God and he can do no wrong right after this. Thanks, everybody.
I only say that about you,
Check
buddy.
us out at docandlefty.com, Facebook, and Twitter.
Psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places, especially if you seek honest Christian business people. And when it comes to my car, I really need to trust who's working on it. Now, my family is so blessed. A few years ago, we found a family-owned automobile repair shop that operates as a Christian business also. Open, honest, reliable, trustworthy. It's Amco on Hickman Road in front of Kmart, and it's a family-owned Christian operating business. This family treats your car as if it was their car. Everything from oil changes to transmission repair and everything in between. So the next time you feel the need to be at peace with your choice of who you can trust with your car, give Amco on Hickman a chance to serve you. And tell them Max sent you.
Welcome back, everybody. Tragedy struck over the break there. It looks like we lost our guest, Dr. Hieb. Maybe she got, for serious political candidates, my friend, we should probably tighten up our game a little bit. Because
I just noticed it now.
Yeah, I just noticed it too. I'm sure that it wasn't deliberate. I'm sure that maybe something happened, or
I blame Frank,
or lost the connection or something, and
or maybe she just got tired of us shouting at each other.
But that's what I was about to say. Yeah. There are certain folks. I think she's calling back in, so hopefully we can get connected back up with her. But I do know that our other good friends, the show, Tom, Shaw, and Brad Zahn, have pulled me aside secretly away from you and said, "Hey, look, can you just make that Petrosh guy more serious? If we're going to come on a political talk show, we'd like to." Hey, Dr. Hieb, are you back?
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry, I got dropped there.
Oh no, that's perfectly fine.
We thought, geez, what are we going to do now?
Well, I thought that Pat had said something that offended you.
We're going to have to talk to each other. That's what I was afraid of.
I was going to say, there's so much to blame Obama over illegal immigration. We don't need to blame him over this thing in the Ukraine.
You traitor. Traitor. So, and this is what this segment is about is, don't get me wrong. He has been consistent in his foreign policy. All right. It's just that it doesn't work. If you look at, let's take Libya. Let's take Libya. The one time when he said, we're going to go get involved in a war, right? In an actual war. And he went in with the Europeans and said, we're just going to provide air cover. Well, if you look at what Libya's turned into, that is a disaster.
But everybody agreed with him at the time.
Yep.
Everybody agreed with him at the time.
This guy.
No, everybody didn't agree with him. I certainly did. I got to tell you, I saw that one coming, and I told people, my experience looking at his administration is this, and this is what I tell people, is if they were just incompetent on random chance alone, they would do something in the security interest of America, but they never do. So that's my take.
Well, and the thing is, look, I know, and this is going to be my criticism of the right, but they scream so much about Benghazi, they lose touch with the rest of what's going on over there. I mean, it is a country in turmoil. The people are starving. Half the time it's in revolt. They still have armed gangs roving around. And it culminated. We like to say it culminated in Benghazi, but it didn't. That was just a symptom of it. Let's look at, we'll go to Syria.
Okay, right? So hold on a second.
All right.
So should we arming the Muslim Brotherhood? I mean, it's just that's part of this whole thing. We keep arming the Muslim Brotherhood.
So
we have to stop doing that.
Going into Libya was a mistake. but not going into Syria was a mistake. How do you square that circle?
Well, here's how you square it. When you say you're going to do something, you have to go do it. And he's drawing so many red lines in the sand in Syria about Assad going, well, hold on. If you use chemical weapons, and turns out it was our side, the party that he was wanting to support, which had all the Al-Qaeda elements in it, where there was evidence that they were using gas first.
John McCain, Lindsey Graham, everybody wanted to support. John McCain was advocating supporting the rebels.
You know who the president is? It's Obama.
John McCain was advocating the Republicans. Hold on a second. Do not twist this around.
No, you have
the Republicans wanted
to measure his foreign policy based upon what he supported and based upon what he said.
We didn't want to arm the rebels, and now the rebels are not using our arms to kill Israelis in Israel right now. That's what's happening. The Republicans wanted to arm the rebels, and ISAF has gone into Iraq, taken over Iraq, and are now going into Israel and lobbing rockets from the Gaza Strip. That's what's happening. That could have been American firepower if we'd armed the rebels the way that the Republican Party wanted.
But you don't know. You don't know. It's not American weapons going over there. It's not.
Yeah, it's not because the Obama administration decided not to get involved in that way.
If you don't think that they can't get American weapons, I said you're thinking of something else. I'm going to tell you.
I'm talking about a specific policy point.
Well, the specific policy point is, we're going to get rid of Assad, and if he uses chemical weapons, we're going to do
all his chemical weapons are gone.
And
100% are gone.
It was only
Done.
because the Russians bailed us out. It's the Russians that came in and saved us in that spot, just like the Iranians are coming in and saving us over in Iraq. It's just one foreign policy failure after another. Now,
it's because we've been in bed with the wrong people for 40 years. How is that Obama's fault? Yeah, right. No, that's exactly right.
You know what? Whether or not we were in bed with the wrong folk, we were in bed with people that were willing to further our interests, and that's not what Obama is doing. So, I mean, he is in Syria, or he didn't go into Syria, which we talked about that on the show. But the bottom line is he drew a line in the sand, inadvertently said, "Hey, this is our land in the sand," and he's never stepped forward. All he's done is allow Assad to win. And if that is your goal, terrific. But it doesn't help us in that area. You said it right on the head. All these Syrians running around doing all these other things with Russian-made weapons. And it's that entire region.
And if we had armed the rebels the way that your team wanted us to do, it would be American weapons.
But you don't know. But you don't know that, because maybe they would have won and said, "Hey, we're going to sit here and worry about our own people." We armed the Libyans. We don't see we helped the Libyans, and we don't see American weapons being shipped over to ISIS being used against Israelis or Americans in Iraq.
Completely different area of the world.
But
First of all, second of all, you do not have.
You don't think that they have cross-border transport with
the
these
Sunnis
things?
have declared an Islamic caliphate in Iraq at this point. This is what ISIS is trying to do, and so the border between Syria and Iraq is gone, done. They're going after folks. They're going after the Shias and Hezbollah, and trying to support the folks in Hamas lobbing rockets into Israel. This whole thing.
If you're telling, I blame Bush, I'm gonna.
No, I'm not.
I'm gonna mute
No,
it.
of course not.
All right.
Of course not. I'm blaming the folks from World War I. I'm blaming the French and the British because that's whatever. But
but you know what? I think you also have to back up and say, look, we always have this rosy glass look at the world, and we think that we should always instill a democratic leader in these places.
Agreed.
The fact of the matter is, Egypt for years was not a democratic society, but it was calm and peaceful. It was relatively secular under kind of a strong man who kept the Muslim extremists at bay. Same thing with Assad's father, and same with the thing at Assad. If you remember,
Gaddafi.
This is a great guy. Okay,
Saddam.
Gaddafi and all these things. Assad's father, when the Muslim Brotherhood and the extremists wanted to rampage and do all these things, he leveled the town of Hama. He murdered 10,000 people. However, for 30 years it was quiet after that, or 20 years. And all my point is that we see that as we always see, oh, that's a terrible thing. We should get rid of these dictators. And every time, from the Shah of Iran on, every time we support some group under this kind of rosy-colored idea that they're freedom fighters, it turns out No,
Well,
we're actually just allowing Muslim extremism into the area, and it's not what it turns out to be. These things, these systems of, Syria was relatively peaceful until this whole thing, Assad's father kept it relatively peaceful. And the minute we start arming the rebels, whether it's us or somebody else, thinking it's going to bring us, they're going to be look at Egypt. They were going to bring Egypt democracy, right? And people in this country, and even in, people that, I wouldn't have predicted this, but, like Max Kaiser and some other people that say, oh, look at this freedom. It's freedom. It's going to be this wonderful Arab Spring. No, what they did is they had the Muslim Brotherhood took over. They hung people outside the doors of the Parliament building. They brutalized people. I mean, it was horrible. And that's who we always get when we take out these dictators. Unfortunately, as much as I love representative government, in some parts of the world, it doesn't seem to work. And I'm going to tell you, I think we should just stay out of this one. So I don't agree. I'm a conservative, but trust me, I don't think those guys are right. I don't think John McCain was right at all about giving them arms and arming the rebels in Syria. I'm glad we didn't do that.
Same here.
I don't think that was the right thing, and I think every time we do that, we're going to get in trouble.
And I think on this side of the coin, Dr. Hieb, you and I are in agreement that when it comes to war and other foreign adventures, there are a lot of folks out there that are more than happy to get us into the war and let the next political class 10 years down the road figure out how to get us out.
Yeah, that's true.
Well,
Doc, we got to close off the show. We want to thank you for joining us today. How can people get a hold of you if they want to donate or help your campaign?
Well, thank you very much for asking. It's Hieb2014.com.
HIEB.
HIEB as in boy, 2014.com.
All right.
And we got all our stuff there, and we'd love to see you on Facebook and Twitter, and help us take back liberty in Iowa.
All right. Thanks a lot, Doc. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for calling in. Good luck in your campaign. We want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. We want to thank our sponsors, Petrosian Associates, Lubinas Law Firm, Halo Capital, and Des Moines Anesthesia. If any of you want to sponsor our show, we'd be glad to have you. Just give us a call or write us on docandlefty.com.
Go to Facebook.
Oh, man. Look at that. Another free advertisement. I can't get away with it.
Do some Twitter.
You bet. Now, you doing anything this week?
For the rest of the fiscal week?
Yes.
Oh, I'm getting ready to take a little bit of time off at the end of the month, but I'll be probably back do the show. I don't think we're going to be out of town that long, but not this week. But then I should tell everybody that the last few weekends I've been rehearsing with this new blues band that I'm in. It's the J.B. Morrison Band. My good buddy J.B. Morrison from way back in the day when I used to be in Band 7 Iowa City has put together kind of a super group of folks that we're talking about. A lead guitar player who just can shred, a bass player who's got the soul down deep in his boots, myself playing a little bit of harmonica, and we're going to be at the Altoona Palooza on August 23rd, and I'm going to continue to mention that. It's a free show. You guys come out. We're playing with Pie in the Sky and Toaster from 4 to 6. So if you want to hear some gritty blues rock, that's the place to be on August 23rd. But other than that, man, I'm just kind of
be relaxed,
trying to keep my head above water.
Well, I'm just gonna in a couple of weeks I'm gonna be out in Sturgis doing Sturgis-y things, so maybe I can call in. But if not, I think you could cover the show.
Oh, I'll figure something out.
All right,
I'm gonna hang my red Che Guevara banner and behind the captain's chair, and we'll go from there.
All right, thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll be back next week. Facebook, Twitter, and docandlefty.com. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
Good night.
Hi, I'm Representative Tom Shaw, and I love these guys. Both of them.
Love these guys. Get over here. Love both of them.